Hi, everybody. I'm Jenny, and this is Life Take Two, where I share my harrowing escape from Mormon trad wife life. I want to start off today by thanking all of you who have subscribed, followed, watched, and commented. 6 years ago last month, I felt like I was the only person in the world who had ever had a marriage collapse, who had ever gone through divorce, who had ever had to start over in life and really gone through rough times. And it was when I started sharing my story that I realized that there are so many of you out there who've gone through the same or similar struggles. So thank you. The very best part of being on the other side of your camera screen here is knowing that once I post this video, I will start hearing stories from people around the world who are on this life journey with me. And there's something about that that just absolutely reassures me, knowing that I'm not alone and neither are you. A question that I get quite a bit when I talk about divorce is, why did I go from high six-figure income, living the Mormon trad wife dream life, to sleeping in my vehicle in less than a year? And then people get really specific, like, isn't Arizona a 50-50 state? Didn't you have assets to divide? Didn't you receive a divorce settlement? What about alimony and child support? When people ask me this question, I don't think that they're just trying to poke around in my business and invade my privacy, the little bit of privacy that I still have after sharing my story around the world. I feel that they're asking for one reason and one reason only. The people who ask this question may, at some point, if they haven't already, find themselves in a marriage where they may sacrifice part of their education, part of their career, part of their earning potential to have babies and be somewhere on the spectrum of stay-at-home wife and mom. So when they ask me about what happened in my divorce, what they're really trying to do is assuage their own fears that they will be left with nothing in the end. Today, I want to go through the timeline and the math of my divorce so you can see what happened to me. For a little bit of background, my husband and I were married for 24 years. We had 4 children who were financially dependent on us at the time of the divorce, including a son who had just come home from a Mormon mission who was in college, a daughter who was living in the state that we had just moved from, finishing up her senior year in high school, totally financially dependent on us, and then 2 young children at home. I had not had a real job since the year that me and my husband got married. And I had worked in our family businesses, like as my husband's little helper for most of our 24-year marriage, but I had never received a paycheck and I didn't have like enough job skills to have any type of job other than being my husband's little helper in our business. Just timeline. Our marriage ends in October, and 3 days after the very unexpected, very sudden, very heartbreaking end of our marriage, I finally stopped crying, climbed out of bed, and drove to the grocery store to grab some milk and bread and bananas and things like that, and swiped my debit card that should have had substantial funds behind it in the bank. And the little card reader said, "Card declined." And I called a friend to Apple Pay me some money so that I could buy those 2 little bags of groceries at Trader Joe's, drove straight to the American First Credit Union, and found that my husband had cleaned out every penny that we had in the bank. I had never thought of that. I was very naive. First of all, I thought that he couldn't legally just take everything, and I thought that he wouldn't take everything. We'd been married for 24 years. I needed money. The kids needed money. I would have never thought of doing that. And I didn't think that he would either. And of note, I never received any of that money back for multiple reasons. In the state of Arizona, because we were still married, I hadn't filed for divorce. He was allowed to do whatever he wanted to with the money. And also, I had a really sucky divorce attorney. So 3 days after our marriage, I am left with zero. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. No job, no income, nothing. That was in October. I would spend the next couple of months. This is really embarrassing to talk about, but I think that it's important. I did a little GoFund for myself, and I would Facebook DM it to friends and family and neighbors. And it was a little GoFundMe, like, I need food, I need gas, I need, socks for the kids and things like that. And that is the only actual money that I had coming in for that first little bit. I went down to the DES one day to apply for food stamps and health insurance and just told them, I'm getting divorced. I need food, but I didn't have the money to file for divorce, and he just wasn't filing for divorce. So without that, like, they just laughed me right back out the door. I came in my little Gucci purse with my designer clothes and my high heels, my Mercedes out in the parking lot that I could not afford to put gas in. I had friends go funding me money. And yeah, I could not get any help with food. So I figured out like where the Catholic food banks were and some Christian charities. And that's how we survived, along with my little GoFundMe. By February of that year, I had some friends and a family member who helped me put a retainer down on an attorney, and I was able to file for divorce. And in May, I had emergency orders finally from the court for a one-time spousal maintenance and child support payment that was immediately garnished out of my husband's wages. So let's count up the months there. October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May was the first time that me and my children would have any type of money from my soon-to-be ex-husband. After that initial wage garnishment, by the way, 2 days later, he would quit working for our windshield business, quit his substantial six-figure income plus bonuses plus potential commission, and just choose to be unemployed rather than have his wages garnished in the future. So that was the only one time ever after my marriage of 24 years ended that I would have any type of a wage garnishment. Our divorce would finally settle completely in August of that year. I want to read you this little paragraph from my divorce decree. And ladies, listen up, because should you choose to be financially dependent on your husband, then this little paragraph could be written about you someday. Wife is entitled to an award of spousal maintenance for the reason that wife lacks enough property, including property given to her as part of this divorce or legal separation, to provide for her reasonable needs, is providing the primary care to children of young age, lacks earning ability necessary to support herself, made a significant financial or other contribution to the education, training, vocational skills, career, or earning ability of her husband, and has significantly reduced her income or career opportunities for the benefit of husband. I wish that I could go back to my 20-year-old self and slap that girl when she was putting all of her time, her energy, her heart into making sure that he got educated, to making sure that he was making the most money that he could possibly make, instead of just putting myself through college and being able to provide for myself and my kids. So in a nutshell, because I lacked any sort of property, we were renting our home, we didn't own our vehicles, we didn't own anything. In my divorce, I got some Rubbermaid boxes full of camping equipment. I got a couple of chairs, some antique dishes, an IKEA bunk bed, just some odds and ends, a couple of pillows, things like that. That is what I got from my divorce. Again, I didn't recuperate any of the money, and I was given a $6,000 settlement, which was $5,000 less than what I owed my attorneys. So I ended up, after 24 years of marriage, with negative $1,000 and an award of spouse maintenance and child support moving forward. Again, I had two children living at home. They were the only two that counted. The other two, the college son and the high school daughter, they didn't even count, which in my opinion is a huge Achilles heel in our family law, because I was paying for everything for them. They had no way to provide for themselves. And yet, because my daughter was over 18, she didn't count. She didn't factor into this at all. So I was given $788 a month in child support and an additional $1,600-ish for a total of $2,400 a month, while my husband was making a substantial six-figure income. Because of our sizable family, my monthly expenses with our rental condo that, he had rented, and the vehicle that I was driving that he had purchased. I, of course, couldn't purchase that Mercedes on my own. And then cell phones and, you know, dental and insurance and groceries and gas and all of those expenses that go into supporting a family. My monthly expenses at the time were $4,300. We were living in Gilbert, Arizona, which is a very expensive housing area. That's where we're from. That's where my kids were going to school and everything. And my $2,400 a month of alimony plus child support was obviously much less than that $4,300 a month in expenses. The court assigned me a wage that I didn't have of $3,000 a month. That was just a random number that was put in our divorce decree, that Miss Gage is assigned a monthly wage of $3,000 a month. I still don't know where that total came from. Like they just pulled that out of their butt. There's some calculator about this is how much money she should be making. I did get my first job during this time. And that's a really sad story that I talk about in other videos, job interviewing after being a trad wife. I put together what I thought was a really great resume. I'm a hard worker. I feel like I have a good personality. I got 0 job interviews. I finally did get my first job interview as an assistant manager position for a rival windshield business. And the man who interviewed me literally laughed at me. And he told me, "Sweetie, you should not be applying for jobs like this. You absolutely do not have the experience or the skills to work in this capacity. I don't know what to tell you, but please don't waste people's time by applying for jobs like this." So my first job that I ever got was working for $11 an hour as an assistant in a classroom in an elementary school, 4.5 hours a day. Do the math. That combined with the $2,416 a month in child support and alimony was not anywhere close to being able to provide for a family of 4 children and myself. Right around the time of my divorce, my husband would cancel the lease on our condo without telling me. The property managers would tell me, and it was illegal for them to do so because my name hadn't even been on the lease. I hadn't existed. I didn't need to exist. My husband took care of me. And we found out on a Thursday that we had to be out on Saturday. I had some family members who came up with money to put down on another rental house. Within 3 months, we would lose that rental house. And here's why: that $1,600 plus in spousal maintenance that my husband was ordered to pay. He paid that one time the month after our divorce settled. The next month, he paid that $788 child support, but then he just kind of decided not to pay the alimony. And I called my lawyer, like, "Hey, Jake isn't paying." And a couple months went by, and my lawyer's like, "Okay, well, then we need to go back to court," which I didn't have money for. And there was absolutely no way to enforce. I finally, once again, had friends go fund. We went back to court, and my ex-husband found so many creative ways to get out of paying stuff that to this day, like, I think I should write a book just on how he evaded paying alimony and child support, but I would hate to give other men ideas. Eventually, he would end up $16,000 in arrears, and I would finally fundraise to take him back to court. At that time, we had both gotten a paper in the mail that said that he would be arrested, he would be incarcerated if he wasn't able to make a purge payment, and for him to anticipate that in our next hearing. So we went to this hearing, and my ex-husband shows up, and it's in the middle of the pandemic anyway, so everybody's feeling really sympathetic for him. They can't work because it's a pandemic. And here's this mean woman who's just trying to collect money from somebody. And he comes to court and he has tears in his eyes, and he's like, "Your Honor, my aged mother, who has been in a nursing home for several years, fell down in the nursing home. I think she has Alzheimer's and frontal lobe dementia, my ex-mother-in-law. And so I drove out to Texas and I've moved her in with me. And I'm now the full-time caretaker for an elderly woman who is unable to go to the bathroom by herself or cook for herself. She must be watched 24/7. So I will not be able to work. I'm currently making zero income." And so the judge ordered him to pay a $200 purge payment on $16,000 in arrears and said, "If you can make this purge payment today, then we will not incarcerate you." And he did. Mother would live with him for the next, I don't know, year and a half, until he finally whittled our child support down to $413, got rid of alimony. And once that happened, on court, whittled everything down, and they're like, "Oh, sure, you're not working, you're caring for your mother, so you shouldn't have to pay anything." Once that happened, my son went up to stay with his dad one weekend and came home and said, "Oh, hey, guess what? We're driving grandma back out to Texas to put her back in the nursing home." And that was the most creative thing that I've ever heard of anyone doing to evade supporting their children. So there was the math in a nutshell. After 24 years of marriage, I walked away with zero, less than zero, absolutely nothing. Also, it's really important for me to mention that in the 6 years Since our marriage ended, the 5 years since our divorce finalized, my ex-husband has never once, for any reason, paid for anything that our kids have ever needed. Not when I've called and said, I don't have money for groceries. I'm homeless. I had my son once at a dental appointment already anesthetized. I needed $300 extra to extract a tooth that had broken off down below the surface of his gums. And my husband told me to fuck off. So in the 6 years since our divorce, he has not paid for one bloody thing that our children have ever needed. 2 school years ago, a Bible study group gave us a little gift card to pay for school supplies for my children. I have had all kinds of friends and family, TikTok followers, and fundraisers, donations from different people to help pay for medical necessities and when we were once again displaced from housing. So there's my sad story. And I have heard from women around the world who have even worse than that. I think the saddest one was a woman who said that she's 73 years old. She got divorced at 60 and she lives in a horrible apartment that she sent me a little picture of, working at Walmart and just trying to support herself as best she can with absolutely nobody to turn to. So here's a little bit of data for you. Less than 40% of child support is ever collected. And that doesn't mean that it's paid on time. That means sometimes after the kids are 18 years old, it finally gets paid. Less than 40% and less than 17% of spousal maintenance is ever paid. So if you are in a marriage feeling like you have this security net, this insurance that should something happen, you're going to get a settlement. You guys are going to divide the house and he's going to pay you alimony and child support. That is absolutely not a risk that you should be taking because the odds are not in your favor. And if you are a young wife and mom who's making the decision to quit your career and stay home to raise your children, and you don't own your home and you don't have a substantial amount of money in the bank and you don't have a prenup in place in your own education and career options, should the marriage fail or your husband die, then you are going to be even worse off than the norm. All right, that's it for today. Now I'd love to hear from you. If you were a wife and mom who's been through divorce, what did alimony and child support look for you? How did you survive after your marriage ended? And if you would like to learn how to prevent having all of this happen to you, the link for my Manproof Your Life programs is in the description. I currently have my wait list for January going on and have space for a couple more private clients going into December. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.